Welcome to the Innovators, the podcast where we talk to the people building the future. In each episode, we sit down with technologists, founders, researchers, and engineers who are doing real, impactful work. They're applying technologies in ways that change how we live, work, and think. Whether it's breakthroughs in AI, climate tech, health systems, or digital infrastructure, this show is about the people turning ambitious ideas into working systems. No hype, just thoughtful conversations with the folks making it happen. Welcome back to the Innovators, where we talk to amazing people doing amazing things. Today on the show, we have David Silverstein. He's the CEO of Amaze Health, which is an AI health platform. I can't imagine you're the only one out there, but it seems like you guys are close to shipping and actually building stuff. So I wanted to talk to you and see what you guys were up to.
Yeah, appreciate that. You know, it's funny when you describe us as an AI company. I think back to the early days of the internet. People say, "Are you an internet company?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you don't, if you're not an AI company today, you're not a company, right? Because AI is coming on very strong. I started building Amaze all the way back in 2019, and we introduced it to the first customers in 2020. And if you had talked to me back then, I told you we were building a platform for AI, but AI wasn't ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said to folks all the way back then that I didn't know when AI would be ready. Could be 5 years, 10, 15, or 20. But somebody was going to need to build a platform that took ownership of customer relationships, patients, right? Because we're talking healthcare, and needed a platform that was going to be ready when AI became ready. Who knew that 2023, 24 would be when the AI boom really started to take off, and 2024 and 2025 would be when it exploded. And sure enough, we had the platform that was really ready to make the most of it. So it's so we really consider ourselves a platform for AI, not the inventor of AI, maybe the ultimate AI use case in healthcare, but we're going to leave inventing the AI to the Googles and Anthropics and X's of the world.
Sure. So the way that works, right, is this telemedicine, or how does it work?
Yeah. So Amaze is in many ways a virtual health platform, but really we've designed Amaze to be what I'd like you to think of as the operating system for your healthcare. So if you think about your Windows operating system, I don't know about you, I'll date myself, but I've been on the same Windows operating system since about 1987. Right? Goes through an upgrade every 4 or 5 years. The first time I booted it up, I was using Lotus 123 and Harvard graphics and all, and I did not change operating systems when I moved to Excel and PowerPoint and went from my Netscape browser to my Chrome browser to Microsoft Edge and so on. So Amaze, we launched as a telemedicine platform doing what everybody thinks telemedicine is, which is teledoc, right? Virtual urgent care, and very quickly moved into mental health and virtual primary care and virtual orthopedic support, patient navigation, care coordination, to where we are today, which is a platform that our customers use to manage everything related to their healthcare. Purely a subscription-based service, so that you never think about it, right? You don't pay a fee every time you boot up your PC and log into Windows or open up a Windows application. Same thing with Amaze. So we've made ourselves the operating system for employers and for patients to manage everything related to their healthcare. And a lot of that starts with what you think of as telemedicine.
Mm-hmm. And adding in AI into this, how does that done, right? I mean, a lot of people are probably worried that the AI is going to, tell them to eat a bunch of salt or something accidentally. It seems like it's fairly dangerous. What are you guys doing to inject that into the system?
Yeah. So what we think is really unique about Amaze and the way we're approaching AI is we have a real medical team, right? So we also have our own national medical practice. All of our medical providers are full-time dedicated employees. So every physician assistant, nurse practitioner is a full-time employee of Amaze. So where we primarily use AI is where the patient never sees it, right? We're using it to make our medical providers not just more efficient, but also much, much better at what they do. And then because we have our own team of medical providers, we get to allow you to interact with AI at a pace that works for you. That's something a technology pure company right? A company that wants to be an AI can't do. So what you're seeing and the fears you hear and the concerns I think are all valid. If you're purely in the AI business, you've almost got to go too fast. I'll give you a really, really quick example of what that means. Suppose you're sitting around and you've suddenly got this really awful rash on your arm. And so you go into your Amaze app and you send us a message that says, hey, I got this awful rash on my arm. Well, AI can pretty quickly pick up on that, right? Rash. Oh, well, while your call is being ringing to the doctor, we answer most calls in 15 or 20 seconds. Why don't you go ahead and take a picture of that for us? So a camera icon pops up on your phone and you say, great, I'll take a picture. Meanwhile, the AI just based on what that preliminary purpose is, it might have just inserted an extra 30 seconds into the ringing process, right? Give you time to take that picture. As soon as you take it, well, guess what? Dermatology is the most visual of all medical sciences. So now that picture immediately can be fed to artificial intelligence, which can do visual pattern recognition, and it identifies that is likely poison ivy. You as a patient now are presented with multiple choices. One is you can just let a doctor answer your call because you want to talk to him about your poison ivy. The second is you can decide, I'm going to click that button that says, tell me more about poison ivy. Or you can hit hang up. You're thinking, I haven't had poison ivy since I was a kid, but I was visiting my parents this weekend, helping dad chop some wood. I know what poison ivy is. I know what to do, right? And so we can meet you where you are. If you want to talk to a doctor because you've never had poison ivy before, you don't know what to do for it, it just goes straight through. You can ask for more information. And so by sitting at the intersection of live, real, experienced medical professionals and artificial intelligence, our intent is to meet patients exactly where they are. And over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, as the technology improves, right, you can decide. Meanwhile, for the doctor answering your call, that information would already be on their screen, right? That picture would already be on their screen. The preliminary diagnosis that says 99.76% probability that this is poison ivy. If you have had poison ivy before, and we know that, and that's in your medical record, then that'll be put up on the doctor's screen. But we are not prescribing to you or telling you to depend on artificial intelligence. We're using this combination of making things much, much more efficient, more effective, and meeting where you are as a patient and letting you decide at what pace are you going to become a patient of artificial intelligence versus live human beings. And I don't think anybody else can do that because they haven't figured out how to marry the live human brain with artificial intelligence. Kind of like what's the old Greek the Cerberus, right? That half human, half horse, right? This is half human, half machine.
Interesting. Are there any concerns, HIPAA compliance, all that other stuff?
There really isn't if you do things right. This concern about artificial intelligence and privacy really has to do with you going out and using a publicly available version of artificial intelligence and not having complete control over what is done with your information. When you're using it in a contained environment, a protected environment, it's no different than if a doctor was doing a search with a medical tool or library that they subscribe to, like Up to Date, and they're putting your symptoms in there. So no, that's sitting at the intersection of, are you using publicly available tools or are you using secure tools as we do?
I'm also wondering what's the future of this stuff, right? So you basically started this process a long time ago, but are doctors replaced by this? Do we completely wholesale that sort of like as you were saying, the poison ivy sort of situation? Do we wholesale replace folks and only bring in the big guns when needed, like experts when needed, or how does this work? You said it's a mind machine sort of situation, but at what point does the mind replace everybody?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the same question we're going to have across all of industries, and don't get me started on where I think the real existential economic risks come into play. But when it comes to medicine, yeah, I mean, in many cases, artificial intelligence are already better, especially at complex diagnoses, than human beings. And the reason for that is, the human brain, you can take in maybe 3 or 4 variables and make sense of them if you were a physician. But if you need to be able to see what's going on, and that diagnosis is dependent on 12, 15 variables, maybe it's very, very early signs, precursors of cancer, right? You're not showing symptoms yet. You're looking at a complex set of lab work and genetic history and imaging, the ability to synthesize all of that information. Artificial intelligence is already better at that. The way we use things like that is, so let's take a different scenario, not the poison ivy. Let's say you called us about your 9-year-old. They've been vomiting all night and all morning. And you call in, you're talking to a doctor, and the doctor's asked questions. Their inclination is tell you it could be food poisoning, could be a stomach virus. Keep them well hydrated. Here's the symptoms or the signs to look out for if things get worse. Meanwhile, listening to your conversation is artificial intelligence. It's transcribing that call for the doctor. It's taking notes for them, but it's also every 90 seconds to 2 minutes doing a preliminary diagnosis. You don't see that, right? The doctor is still there, but what that artificial intelligence does is via an agent, it says, oh, gastrointestinal distress, goes out to the CDC's website through an open API that the CDC makes available, does a search and says, oh, there's been 3 cases of E. coli reported within the last 24 hours within 25 miles of your home, and flashes that up on the doctor's screen, right? We haven't substituted that live doctor for artificial intelligence. We're just making that doctor better. Where they were going to just tell you to give them some Pedialyte, now they're going to ask you a few more questions about where you've been out to dinner, if you've bought raw vegetables at the supermarket, and maybe they're instead going to direct you to a local urgent care or lab to go get your child tested for E. coli, and they're not likely to have done that if the information coming in wasn't automatically fed to the CDC's search tool and comes back and gives them some additional information. So over time, that diagnosis is probably going to come as you get more comfortable, right? You called in the first time, it was poison ivy. The second time, your child's got this gastrointestinal issues going on. And maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, you're really comfortable asking that artificial intelligence, what do you think is going on here? And as long as that AI also has a probabilistic model behind it and can say to you, oh, there's a 100% chance this is what's going on, or there's a 99.99% chance this is what's going on, but there's also a 1 in 1,000 chance it could be this, and you really need to talk to the doctor, right? So artificial intelligence is absolutely going to start filling that role and taking over from the everyday family doctor, urgent care physician. It's still going to be a long time before AI can put its hands on you, right?
The probabilistic model, that idea is fairly interesting. It seems like there's a couple services or a couple companies that are research projects where they basically fed in every single bit of research about, I don't know, a certain disease. And the information that popped out basically said, oh, this disease can be ameliorated with a certain type of medicine because of this document, this document, this document, and this document. If you put it all together, that sort of connection, I think is really interesting. First off, are you using any of the interactions with the doctors and the patients as training data? Second, what is the chance that you talk to the system notices that you've been talking to 15 people in Long Island who all have the same symptoms and can start seeing those patterns?
Yeah, so great question. So on the training side, we're still a young company, a little over 100,000 patients. So we don't have the critical mass of data where it would be responsible for us to be trying to train and actually improve medicine, right? So that we use from data sources that are coming out of the big research centers and universities and all that kind of thing. But when it comes to the kind of pattern recognition you just mentioned, absolutely. Can we start to recognize that something is going on? The CDC theoretically already does this, but it's very dependent on medical providers reporting things, right? So the CDC looks for patterns, measles outbreaks would be the big one today, but they're very, very dependent on doctors seeing the symptoms, testing somebody, test comes back positive, reporting it. There's a big time delay. We can start to see things we were seeing during COVID. We were seeing COVID outbreaks before the CDC was reporting them on their website. And that was as a very small company. For one reason or another, we had a critical mass of customers in the Phoenix area. Early on and during the pandemic, a fast food restaurant that was tasked by its headquarters, a chain, a franchisee with several hundred franchises was tasked with by its headquarters, the parent company, with putting people through a rigorous process before they could come back to work when they tested positive for COVID. And so they sent all of these franchisees to us. And very quickly, over the next 2 years, we could see when COVID outbreaks were actually happening, because we would get a call from somebody at one Pizza Hut reporting that they tested positive for COVID, and then a Taco Bell 2 miles away, and then another Burger King, that were all part of the same franchise operation. And we could literally see in real time, as outbreaks were starting to happen, we'd look a week later and see, oh yeah, we were right. We can look on the CDC's website and see there was an outbreak there. We knew it literally within hours or days that the outbreak was happening. So yes, those kind of things I think are going to really improve detections. Is something viral? Is it bacterial? What's spreading in the community? Yeah, those kinds of things are going to be improving really, really fast.
And is there any way to use that training? Like I said, are you able to, as a company, use that training data, like use the data as training data, just to understand, I don't know, bedside manner, communication, this type of person who's, I don't know, hypochondriac, right? They're call all the time. How can you use the AI to kind of like head them off at the pass and say, oh, what's going on? You might have an upset stomach. Maybe let's try this. If it's still happening, we can get you in touch with our real person, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's actually the hypochondriac is a really, really good example. So very perceptive. So yeah, we already have, since we're using AI to create medical providers' notes for them, that means the AI is going through the transcript of a call, right? And you're hearing this called scribing, virtual scribing. This is what every medical practice is doing, brick and mortar as well. But it's also, we have it evaluating the patient's sentiment. So things such as, was the patient receptive to the doctor's instructions? Does it sound like they're going to follow the recommendations they were giving? And we're evaluating what I think it's University of Oregon's done a lot of work around something they call the patient activation measure, a measure of a patient's knowledge, skill, and self-confidence to manage their own care. So we have the AI evaluate that with every call. And yes, that's something you put through a training process, right? You take 1,000 calls, you let the AI do it, you have a human do it. How well is the AI doing it? You iterate. But then the next time we take a call with you, we have a sense of what is your knowledge and skill. Are you the kind of person that advocates for yourself? Are you going to ask good questions, or do we need to really explain everything to you without asking questions? Are you the kind of person that just wants us to tell you to take blue pills and doesn't really want us to explain to you in detail what that pill is for? And so, yeah, those kinds of things, AI is very, very good at especially when you start getting into conversations that are more than 5 or 6 minutes in length, so that they really have something to work with.
I guess the last question is like, so saying all that, that's a fascinating move forward, but we can argue that medicine and there's multiple sort of like human interaction sort of jobs that are simultaneously an art and a science, right? When you talk to doctors, do they want all that? Do they want to know that the patient malingering, or that the patient has called 15 times in the past 2 hours, or the past month, or something like that, and that they do X, Y, and Z? Do doctors want to come at each one of these interactions as like a clean slate? Is that traditional for them to have that much data on a patient? I mean, you always have a chart, obviously, but I would argue that chart's probably more quantitative than qualitative, right?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, a good doctor wants to know those things. But, in the medical world, in my own mind, I put doctors into 2 different categories. If I'm going in for surgery, honestly, I don't really care what kind of bedside manner you have. I don't care if I like you. I want somebody with the best technical skills, right? Because it's not relationship based. Because everything we do is virtual, the relationship is a really, really important part of it. We're really putting ourselves in the position of becoming your medical partner, not just your transactional service provider. Part of our philosophy of business is that every one of our patients is going to be a patient for life. And so, yeah, getting to know you, getting to know your family is that's really super important, especially in this virtual medical world. I think where the virtual medical practice of medicine evolves into is it becomes less technical over time, because the technology is going to be better and better at the technical aspects of diagnosis, and it's going to become more relationship based. We still also have to give you advice on when you need to go get that surgery, you need to go get that MRI, right? I don't think my mobile app is going to be doing MRIs anytime soon. X-rays are coming pretty fast, but MRIs probably not with those gigantic, magnets. So it's going to be about the relationship. It's going to be about being able to give you advice in a way that you trust. It's going to be about helping you make financial decisions about whether you're going to have something done and where you're going to have it done as our health insurance system continues to break down. So yeah, I don't think every doctor necessarily wants that, but I think it's a necessary part of it. And certainly in the virtual space, it's very relationship based.
Super. What's the website where people can check this out?
AmazeHealth.com.
AmazeHealth.com. How long have you guys been building this? A couple years now, right?
Yeah. So we really started building the technology platform in earnest in 2019. Took on the first customers, in 2020. Total disaster. You'd think, COVID would be very good for virtual healthcare businesses, but not if you have a sum total of 0 customers the day COVID lockdowns, starts. And then we've really got into the employer market around 2022. The whole time we're building this platform and we were getting it ready for the AI that was coming, but we didn't know when it would come. Right. And so we own our own technology. We built our own platform. We have 30 software developers in our own technology office in Lahore, Pakistan. And we built it to be that platform to plug all of these AI tools into and to be able to create that meeting of the minds between man and machine, knowing that most of the market was just going to try to impose AI on patients and probably as a result, try to do it too fast.
Super. All right. So amazehealth.com. We'll send folks over that way. Thank you for joining us, David.